Somewhere in the ancient world, something impossible once existed. Not a palace standing proudly above the ground, not a fortress built on a mountain, not a temple reaching toward the sky. Instead, it was a city that disappeared beneath the earth itself. A place of tunnels, rooms, passageways, wells, storage chambers, kitchens, churches, schools, and hidden corridors stretching deep into solid rock. A place where thousands of people could live without ever seeing daylight. A place so vast that even today, modern visitors struggle to understand how it was created. And perhaps the strangest part of all is this. For centuries, people walked above it without knowing it was there. Beneath ordinary homes, beneath fields and roads, beneath the footsteps of generations, an entire underground world waited silently in the darkness. Today, we call this place Derinkuyu. But the name alone does not answer the questions that have fascinated historians, archaeologists, travelers, and dreamers alike. Who built this underground city? Why would anyone spend countless years carving chambers into stone? What danger could possibly convince thousands of people to live beneath the earth? And how did such an extraordinary place become forgotten? Tonight, we will move slowly through this mystery. We will travel back through centuries of history. We will descend level by level into one of humanity's most astonishing creations. And as we move deeper into the darkness below, we may discover that the story of Derinkuyu is not only about an underground city. It is also a story about fear, survival, ingenuity, and the remarkable lengths human beings will go to protect their families and preserve their way of life. So settle in comfortably. Allow the noise of the modern world to drift a little farther away. And let us begin our journey beneath the earth. The story starts in the heart of what is now central Turkey. This region is known as Cappadocia. At first glance, Cappadocia seems almost unreal. The landscape is filled with strange rock formations rising from the ground like giant stone towers. Some resemble chimneys. Others look like mushrooms or pillars sculpted by an artist with unlimited patience. For thousands of years, wind and water slowly shaped the land into forms that seem to belong to another world. Travelers arriving here often describe the feeling of stepping into a dream. Yet the true wonder of Cappadocia is not what rises above the ground. It is what exists below it. Long ago, powerful volcanic eruptions covered this region with thick layers of ash. Over immense periods of time, that ash hardened into a soft rock called tuff. Unlike granite or marble, tuff can be carved relatively easily using simple tools. At the same time, it remains strong enough to support large spaces. This unique combination created an opportunity unlike almost anywhere else on Earth. People could dig directly into the rock. They could create rooms, then larger rooms, then tunnels connecting those rooms. Generation after generation, those spaces could continue expanding. What began as a small shelter could eventually become something much larger. Much, much larger. Thousands of years ago, the earliest inhabitants of Cappadocia began using the soft volcanic rock to create homes and storage spaces. Some carved simple chambers into hillsides. Others expanded natural caves. At first, these underground spaces were practical. The earth provided stable temperatures throughout the year. In hot summers, underground rooms remained cool. In cold winters, they remained surprisingly warm. Food could be stored more effectively. Families could shelter from harsh weather. But over time, something interesting happened. The underground spaces grew, and then they grew again. Each generation inherited what previous generations had built. Instead of starting from nothing, they simply expanded what already existed. A new room here, a tunnel there, another storage chamber, another sleeping area. Slowly, almost invisibly, the underground world became larger. No single person sat down with plans for an enormous city. No ruler announced the construction of a giant subterranean civilization. Instead, growth happened gradually, year after year, century after century. The city evolved much like a living organism. It adapted, it expanded, it responded to the needs of those who lived within it. And yet, practical comfort alone cannot explain what Derinkuyu eventually became. As archaeologists explored deeper sections of the city, they discovered evidence suggesting that survival may have been an even more important reason. History was rarely peaceful. Ancient communities often faced uncertainty. Empires rose and fell. Armies marched across continents. Invaders appeared with little warning. Villages could be attacked. Homes could be destroyed. Entire populations could be displaced. For people living in vulnerable regions, safety was never guaranteed. Imagine hearing rumors of approaching soldiers. Imagine distant reports of raids. Imagine knowing that your village stood directly in the path of conflict. What options would ordinary families have? Building stronger walls was one possibility. Running away was another. But the people of Cappadocia seem to have developed a different solution. Instead of building upward, they built downward. Instead of standing against danger in open view, they disappeared beneath the earth. As time passed, underground spaces transformed from simple shelters into carefully designed refuges. The deeper archaeologists looked, the more impressive the engineering became. Ventilation shafts carried fresh air through the city. Water wells provided access to drinking water. Storage rooms held food supplies. Animal stalls housed livestock. Communal areas allowed daily life to continue. This was not a collection of random caves. It was infrastructure, thoughtful, practical, complex. A hidden city designed to function even during long periods of isolation. One of the most remarkable features is the ventilation system. Without fresh air, thousands of people living underground would quickly face disaster. Yet Derinkuyu solved this problem with astonishing effectiveness. More than 50 ventilation shafts connected deep levels of the city with the surface above. Some reached extraordinary depths. Fresh air circulated through multiple levels, making long-term occupation possible. Even today, engineers study these systems with admiration. The builders may not have possessed modern technology, but they understood airflow remarkably well. This raises another quiet question. How much knowledge was required to create something like this? It is easy to imagine ancient people as less sophisticated than modern societies, but places like Derinkuyu challenge that assumption. The builders understood geology. They understood construction. They understood airflow, storage, water management, and security. Their knowledge may have looked different from ours, but it was knowledge nonetheless. And in some ways, it was deeply impressive. As we move a little deeper into the story, another fascinating detail emerges. The city was not designed simply to keep people alive. It was designed to keep them hidden. Many entrances were small and difficult to notice. Tunnels could be sealed using enormous circular stone doors. These doors are among the most famous features of Derinkuyu. Some weigh hundreds of kilograms. From a distance, they resemble giant stone wheels. When rolled into place, they blocked passageways. A small opening in the center allowed defenders to observe activity beyond the door. It also provided limited communication and protection. For an invading force unfamiliar with the city's layout, progress would have been extremely difficult. Even if attackers discovered an entrance, navigating the underground maze would present enormous challenges. The defenders possessed a crucial advantage. They knew every corridor, every hidden passage, every turn, every chamber. The underground city transformed knowledge itself into a form of defense. Imagine the experience from the perspective of an outsider. You arrive expecting a village. Instead, the villagers vanish. Homes appear empty. Fields are abandoned. No signs of resistance exist. No obvious escape routes appear. Yet somehow the population has disappeared. Beneath your feet, thousands of people wait silently in darkness. Their food is stored. Their water is secure. Their families are protected. And unless someone reveals the entrances, finding them may prove nearly impossible. There is something quietly extraordinary about that image. An entire community surviving not through strength but through patience. Not through conquest but through concealment. Not by fighting every threat but by enduring until danger passes. As centuries rolled onward, Cappadocia became home to many different peoples. Empires arrived, empires departed, languages changed, religions evolved, trade routes shifted. The region stood at the crossroads of history. Persians influenced the area. Later came the Greeks, then the Romans. After them came Byzantines and many others. Each era left traces behind. Each generation added new layers to the story. Some historians believe portions of Derinkuyu may date back to the ancient Phrygians, a people who lived in Anatolia thousands of years ago. Others suggest that later civilizations dramatically expanded the existing network. The truth may involve both ideas. The city likely evolved over long stretches of time. Different groups inherited what existed before them and continued expanding it. This pattern appears repeatedly throughout human history. Rarely does one generation create everything. More often, people build upon foundations laid by those who came before. A road becomes a highway. A village becomes a city. A cave becomes an underground metropolis. Derinkuyu seems to embody this process perfectly. Every tunnel tells part of a story. Every chamber represents accumulated effort. Every level reflects decisions made by people whose names have long been forgotten. And perhaps that is one of the most moving aspects of the city. We know almost nothing about most of its builders. No grand monuments celebrate them. No statues preserve their faces. No detailed records tell us what they thought while carving through stone, yet their work survived. Their hands shaped chambers that still exist today. Their choices continue to spark curiosity centuries later. As time passes slowly, let us descend a little farther. Imagine carrying a small oil lamp. The flame flickers gently. Shadows move across stone walls. The air feels cool. Footsteps echo softly through narrow corridors. Above you lies the surface world. But down here, another world exists entirely. Families sleep in carved rooms. Food rests in storage chambers. Children whisper in the darkness. Animals remain sheltered in protected spaces. Life continues beneath the earth. And somewhere within this underground maze, the mystery deepens even further. Because the more archaeologists explored Derinkuyu, the more they realized that this city was not alone. Hidden beneath Cappadocia were other underground cities as well, some smaller, some connected through tunnels, some still being studied today. It began to appear that an entire hidden network may once have existed beneath the region, a world beneath the world, a landscape invisible to anyone standing on the surface. And that discovery would change the way historians understood Cappadocia forever. The question was no longer simply how one underground city existed. The question became something even more astonishing. How extensive was this hidden civilization beneath the earth, and how many secrets might still remain undiscovered in the darkness below? The possibility that Derinkuyu was only one part of a much larger underground world changed everything. For a long time, visitors saw the city as a remarkable curiosity, an isolated wonder, a strange achievement created under unusual circumstances. But as researchers spent more time exploring Cappadocia, a different picture slowly emerged. The landscape above ground was already extraordinary. The landscape below ground appeared even more astonishing. Scattered throughout the region were dozens of underground settlements. Some were relatively small. Others stretched far beyond what anyone had expected. Each discovery seemed to raise new questions, and with every question came a deeper sense of mystery. Imagine standing in a quiet valley thousands of years ago. You see villages in the distance. You see farmers working fields. You see animals grazing beneath the open sky. Everything appears normal. Everything appears ordinary. Yet hidden beneath those familiar scenes may have been entire communities connected by underground spaces. The land itself held secrets invisible to outsiders. In many ways, Cappadocia was like a book with two stories being written at the same time. One story unfolded under sunlight, the other unfolded in darkness. What makes this even more fascinating is the scale involved. Modern estimates suggest that Derinkuyu may have sheltered as many as 20,000 people during periods of danger. Some estimates are lower, some are higher. Exact numbers remain uncertain, but even conservative calculations point toward a truly impressive capacity. Think about that for a moment. 20,000 people, that is not a small village. That is not a handful of families hiding in caves. That is a population comparable to a sizable town. Supporting such numbers required planning. Food needed to be stored. Water needed to be available. Waste needed to be managed. Air needed to circulate. Security needed to be maintained. Daily life needed to continue. The underground city was not simply a shelter. It functioned as a complete environment. And perhaps most remarkable of all, it achieved this without electricity, machinery, computers, or modern engineering equipment. Everything depended on human knowledge and human labor. One tunnel at a time, one chamber at a time, one generation after another. As archaeologists mapped the city, they discovered spaces serving many different purposes. There were kitchens blackened by ancient smoke. There were storage rooms where grain and supplies could be preserved. There were communal gathering areas. There were living quarters. There were wine and oil presses. There were religious spaces where people could worship. There were schools where learning likely continued even during difficult periods. Life underground was not meant to be merely survival. It was meant to remain life. That distinction matters. When modern people imagine hiding underground, they often picture emergency shelters, temporary spaces, places occupied only until danger passes. But Derinkuyu appears different. Its builders anticipated extended stays, perhaps weeks, perhaps months, possibly even longer during severe crises. People did not simply wait underground. They continued their routines. They cooked. They learned. They prayed. They worked. They raised children. The city was designed to support an entire community rather than merely protect individuals. This reveals something important about the people who built it. Their goal was not only physical survival, their goal was cultural survival as well. Protecting food was necessary. Protecting traditions was equally important. Preserving life meant preserving the way of life itself. As we continue deeper into this story, it becomes clear that geography played a major role. Cappadocia occupied a strategic location. For thousands of years, important routes crossed the region. Merchants traveled through it. Armies passed through it. Empires competed for influence over it. Being located at a crossroads brought opportunities. Trade flourished. Ideas spread. Cultures interacted. But crossroads also bring risks. Powerful forces often move through such regions. Communities living there must adapt to uncertainty. History teaches this lesson repeatedly. Places that connect civilizations frequently become places where civilizations collide. For the people of Cappadocia, underground cities may have represented an ingenious response to that reality. They could enjoy the benefits of their location while maintaining a unique form of protection. When peace prevailed, life continued above ground. When danger approached, life could shift below. The city waited patiently beneath their feet, ready whenever it was needed. This flexibility may explain why underground construction continued across generations. The system worked. It offered security. It offered options. And perhaps most importantly, it offered hope. Hope that families could survive difficult times. Hope that communities could endure upheaval. Hope that life would continue after the crisis ended. As centuries passed, Christianity spread throughout the region. This development added another layer to the story. During certain periods, Christian communities faced persecution. Religious conflict created new reasons for seeking refuge. Underground cities may have offered protection not only from invading armies but also from political and religious pressures. Within Derinkuyu, archaeologists discovered churches and religious chambers carved directly into stone. These spaces remind us that the underground city was more than an engineering project. It was also a spiritual environment. People brought their beliefs with them beneath the earth. They carried their traditions underground. They preserved their identity underground. Even in darkness, communities sought meaning and connection. There is something deeply human about that. Throughout history, people have always carried stories, values, and beliefs wherever they go. They bring them across deserts, across oceans, across mountains, and in the case of Derinkuyu, beneath the earth itself. The stone walls may have provided physical shelter, but shared culture provided emotional shelter. Together, they created resilience. Now let us pause for a moment and consider the practical experience of living underground. Modern visitors often wonder how people managed psychologically. Would darkness become overwhelming? Would isolation become unbearable? The answer may surprise us. Human beings are remarkably adaptable. Throughout history, People have thrived in environments that initially seem impossible. Arctic communities adapted to frozen landscapes. Desert societies adapted to extreme heat. Mountain populations adapted to high elevations. The inhabitants of Cappadocia adapted to underground spaces. Furthermore, daily life below ground was probably not as strange to them as it seems to us. Many families likely used underground rooms regularly, even during peaceful periods. The spaces were familiar. Children grew up around them. Adults worked within them. Generations inherited knowledge about how to navigate and maintain them. What appears extraordinary from a modern perspective may have felt relatively normal to those who lived there. This is an important reminder. People of the past were not fundamentally different from us. They responded creatively to the conditions around them. Their solutions reflected their environment, resources, and challenges. Given the same circumstances, we might have made similar choices. And yet, despite all this knowledge, one question still lingers quietly in the background. How exactly was Derinkuyu forgotten? How does a city capable of housing thousands disappear from wider memory? The answer unfolds slowly. Not through a single dramatic event, but through the gradual passage of time. History often disappears quietly. A building collapses, a road falls out of use, a language changes, a community relocates. Knowledge passes from one generation to the next until eventually the chain breaks. The memory fades. What was once common knowledge becomes obscure, then forgotten. Derinkuyu seems to have followed a similar path. As political conditions changed and security threats evolved, the need for large-scale underground refuge decreased. Communities adapted. Life shifted. Some underground spaces continued being used, others were abandoned. Over centuries, entrances were sealed, passageways collapsed, rooms filled with debris. The city retreated into silence. Above ground, ordinary life continued. Fields were cultivated, homes were built, families came and went. Few people fully understood what lay beneath them. And so one of humanity's most remarkable engineering achievements slipped into obscurity, not destroyed, not erased, simply forgotten. The rediscovery of Derinkuyu sounds almost like something from a novel. In the 1960s, a local resident was renovating his home. While working, he noticed something unusual. Behind a wall, there appeared to be an unexpected opening. Curiosity led him to investigate. Beyond the opening lay another space, and beyond that more passages. What seemed like a simple home renovation gradually revealed something astonishing. A hidden world, an underground city. Imagine the surprise. Imagine expecting to expand your house and instead uncovering chambers carved centuries earlier. Imagine realizing that an entire forgotten city existed beneath your feet. Stories like this remind us that history is often closer than we think. Sometimes extraordinary discoveries do not occur in distant jungles or remote deserts. Sometimes they occur in someone's basement. Sometimes the past waits quietly behind a wall. The rediscovery of Derinkuyu attracted attention from archaeologists and historians around the world. Exploration began. Maps were created. Research expanded. Each newly documented tunnel revealed additional complexity. The city seemed almost endless. Level after level emerged from darkness. Passage after passage extended farther underground. Researchers realized they were looking at one of the largest underground settlements ever discovered. Yet even today, not every mystery has been solved. Some sections remain inaccessible. Others remain only partially understood. New discoveries continue to emerge. The underground city still guards many of its secrets. That uncertainty is part of its enduring appeal. People naturally feel drawn toward mysteries that remain incomplete. When every answer is known, curiosity fades. When questions remain, imagination continues working. Derinkuyu occupies that fascinating space between knowledge and mystery. We know enough to appreciate its significance, yet we still do not know everything, and perhaps we never will. As time passes slowly, let us move deeper into the experience of the people themselves. Imagine a family preparing to descend underground. News has arrived that danger may be approaching. Perhaps travelers reported military movements. Perhaps neighboring communities shared warnings. Perhaps uncertainty itself was enough. Preparation begins. Food is gathered, animals are brought closer, supplies are organized, families move toward hidden entrances, children stay close to parents. The descent begins. Step by step, daylight fades. The sounds of the surface grow distant. Stone walls surround you. Lamps flicker softly. Voices echo through corridors. Somewhere ahead, other families are arriving too. The underground city slowly comes alive. Doors close, passageways become active. The hidden community awakens. And although uncertainty remains above ground, something important has changed below. People are no longer facing danger alone. They are facing it together. That sense of collective protection may have been one of the city's greatest strengths. Throughout history, survival often depends on cooperation. Communities endure challenges that individuals cannot. Shared effort creates resilience. Shared knowledge creates security. Shared purpose creates hope. Derinkuyu was not merely a collection of tunnels. It was a community infrastructure built around those principles. Every chamber reflected cooperation. Every corridor reflected shared labor. Every level reflected generations working toward a common goal. The city itself became a monument to collective effort, not a monument visible from afar, not a monument designed to impress outsiders, but a hidden monument dedicated to survival. And perhaps that makes it even more remarkable. Many ancient civilizations expressed power through grand structures reaching toward the sky. Pyramids, palaces, temples, monuments. Derinkuyu represents a different philosophy. Its greatness lies in concealment. Its strength lies in invisibility. Its achievement lies beneath the surface. The builders were not trying to be admired. They were trying to endure. And because of that, their creation continues to fascinate us today. But the deeper historians looked into Cappadocia, the more surprising discoveries appeared, because evidence began suggesting that some underground cities may have been connected through long tunnels extending beneath the landscape. If true, the scale of the underground network would become even more astonishing than anyone first imagined. And that possibility opens an entirely new chapter in the mystery of the hidden world beneath Cappadocia. The idea of underground cities connected across the landscape sounds almost impossible. At first, it feels more like mythology than history. A hidden world beneath valleys and hills. A network of tunnels linking distant communities. A secret landscape existing below the visible one. And yet, the evidence has encouraged historians to consider possibilities that once seemed unlikely. One of the most discussed examples involves Derinkuyu and another underground city called Cappadocia. Today, both sites are known to archaeologists and visitors. Both contain extensive tunnel systems. Both demonstrate remarkable engineering, and both raise intriguing questions about how underground communities may have interacted with one another. Some reports have suggested that long connecting tunnels once existed between parts of these underground networks. The exact nature and extent of those connections remain subjects of study and debate. Yet regardless of whether every reported tunnel functioned exactly as imagined, the broader reality remains astonishing. Cappadocia was not home to a single underground city. It was home to many. Taken together, they form one of the most unusual landscapes in human history. Most civilizations leave their mark on the surface. Roads cross valleys. Walls define cities. Temples rise above plains, but Cappadocia developed a second geography, an invisible geography, a geography of tunnels, chambers, shafts, and hidden spaces, a geography that could only be understood by descending into darkness. Imagine what this meant for the people who lived there. Knowledge of the underground world was not optional. It was essential. Children likely learned routes through tunnels at a young age. Adults understood where supplies were stored. Families knew which passages led to safety. Entire communities shared an understanding of spaces that outsiders could barely comprehend. The underground city was not simply architecture. It was part of daily life, part of local identity, part of cultural memory. This knowledge would have been passed from generation to generation, not through textbooks, not through maps, but through experience. A parent showing a child a hidden passage, an elder explaining where water could be found, a community teaching newcomers how the underground system worked. For centuries, this knowledge survived because people actively used it. And that brings us to one of the most fascinating truths about history. Knowledge is not preserved automatically. It survives only when people continue practicing it. A forgotten skill disappears. A forgotten language fades. A forgotten route vanishes. The same is true of underground cities. Once communities stopped relying on them, much of the practical knowledge surrounding them began to fade as well. Yet before that happened, generations of people knew these spaces intimately. They understood details that modern researchers still struggle to reconstruct. For example, consider navigation. Modern visitors often find underground cities confusing. Passages branch unexpectedly. Rooms connect in surprising ways. Different levels overlap. Without guidance, it is easy to become disoriented. But for ancient inhabitants, the layout likely felt familiar. Just as modern people navigate neighborhoods without conscious effort, underground residents may have moved through tunnels naturally. Memory became a map. Experience became a guide. This relationship between people and place is worth reflecting upon. Modern society depends heavily on external systems, maps on phones, digital records, electronic databases. Ancient communities often relied far more on human memory. Information lived inside people. Knowledge traveled through conversation. Skills passed directly between generations. The underground city functioned because its inhabitants carried the necessary knowledge within themselves. The city existed physically in stone, but it also existed mentally in memory. As we move deeper into the mystery, another remarkable aspect deserves attention. The engineering of Derinkuyu reflects a sophisticated understanding of risk. Every major feature appears connected to solving a practical problem. Need fresh air. Create ventilation shafts. Need water. Develop protected wells. Need food security. Construct storage chambers. Need defense. Design narrow passages and movable stone doors. Need long-term habitation. Create spaces for community life. Again and again, we see evidence of thoughtful planning, not abstract planning, practical planning, the kind that emerges when people face real challenges. This is one reason archaeologists find Derinkuyu so compelling. The city reveals intelligence expressed through problem solving. Its builders were not creating something decorative. They were creating something functional. Every tunnel had a purpose. Every chamber served a role. Every level contributed to survival. And survival itself was not a simple task. The ancient world could be unpredictable. Droughts occurred. Conflicts erupted. Political systems changed. Trade routes shifted. Communities that endured often did so because they adapted effectively. Derinkuyu may represent one of the most extraordinary examples of adaptation ever discovered. Rather than attempting to control every threat, its inhabitants created a system capable of weathering uncertainty. In many ways, the underground city functioned like a giant insurance policy. Most of the time, life continued normally above ground. But when danger appeared, an alternative world waited below, prepared, organized, ready. The more one thinks about it, the more impressive it becomes. Imagine maintaining such a system across generations. Rooms required upkeep. Passages required maintenance. Ventilation shafts needed attention. Water systems needed protection. Knowledge needed preservation. This was not a one-time construction project. It was an ongoing commitment, a long-term investment made by countless people whose names history no longer remembers. And yet their work survived. Their city remained. Their decisions continue influencing how we understand the past. There is something quietly beautiful about that. Human beings often worry about being forgotten. Ancient builders were no different. Most of them probably never imagined that people thousands of years later would study their work. They likely focused on immediate concerns, protecting families, supporting communities, preparing for uncertain futures. Yet those practical efforts created something extraordinary. Their legacy endured not because they sought fame, but because they solved problems well. Sometimes the most lasting achievements are the ones built for everyday life. As time passes slowly, let us step back and consider the physical experience of the underground city once more. Picture a corridor illuminated by small lamps. Stone walls surround you. The air feels cool and stable. Somewhere nearby, voices drift through passageways. Perhaps someone is preparing food. Perhaps children are playing quietly. Perhaps elders are sharing stories. Life continues. The darkness is real, but so is the sense of community. For modern visitors, underground spaces often feel unusual because they are temporary environments. Parking garages, subway stations, basements. We enter them briefly before returning to the surface. The inhabitants of Derinkuyu experienced something different. For them, underground space was integrated into life. It was not separate from the world. It was part of the world, part of home, part of safety, part of identity. This perspective helps us understand why underground living became sustainable. People were not simply enduring darkness. They were inhabiting a familiar environment shaped by generations of adaptation. And familiarity changes everything. What seems strange from the outside often feels natural from within. History repeatedly teaches this lesson. Ancient people did not view their lives as unusual. They viewed them as normal. It is only from our perspective that the underground city appears extraordinary. To its inhabitants, it may have felt practical, necessary, comforting even. Now let us turn toward another mystery. How large was Derinkuyu originally? The answer is surprisingly difficult to determine. Modern exploration has revealed multiple levels extending deep underground. Some areas remain inaccessible. Others may still be undiscovered. Researchers continue learning new details about the site's structure. This uncertainty means that the city we see today may represent only part of what once existed. Collapsed passages may conceal additional chambers. Blocked routes may hide unexplored sections. Future discoveries could reshape our understanding yet again. This possibility excites archaeologists because underground cities present unique challenges. Unlike standing ruins, much of the evidence remains hidden. New information can emerge unexpectedly. A sealed corridor is opened. A forgotten chamber is identified. A connection between spaces becomes apparent. Each discovery adds another piece to the puzzle, and the puzzle remains incomplete. In a sense, Derinkuyu continues evolving as a historical mystery, not because the city itself is changing, but because our understanding of it is changing. Every generation asks new questions. Every generation develops new methods. Every generation sees familiar evidence from fresh perspectives. History is not static. Our relationship with history continues developing. The underground city reminds us of that truth. What appears fully understood today may reveal new secrets tomorrow. This brings us to another fascinating aspect of the story: the role of imagination. When people encounter ancient mysteries, imagination naturally becomes involved. We try to picture vanished worlds. We try to reconstruct forgotten lives. We try to understand experiences radically different from our own. This process is both valuable and challenging. Imagination helps bridge gaps in evidence. At the same time, it must remain grounded in reality. The best historians balance curiosity with caution. They explore possibilities while respecting uncertainty. Derinkuyu invites exactly that kind of thinking. Many questions remain unanswered. Who first began carving the earliest chambers? How long did construction continue? How many people contributed over the centuries? What stories were told within its walls? What hopes and fears accompanied those who descended into its depths? Some answers may never be known, yet the questions themselves remain meaningful. They remind us that history is ultimately about people, not just structures, not just dates, not just artifacts, people. Individuals with families, concerns, ambitions, and dreams. The underground city mattered because it mattered to them. Without human lives, the tunnels are simply stone. With human lives, they become history. As the centuries continued passing, the surface world changed repeatedly. Kingdoms rose, kingdoms disappeared, borders shifted, languages evolved. Religions transformed societies, technologies advanced. Entire civilizations came and went. Through all these changes, the underground city endured, quietly, patiently, almost unnoticed. There is something poetic about that endurance. Great empires often announce themselves loudly. They build monuments visible for miles. They celebrate victories. They record achievements. Yet many empires eventually collapse, their power fades, their influence diminishes. Derinkuyu followed a different path. It survived through invisibility, through practicality, through adaptation. Its strength came not from dominating others but from protecting its own people. Perhaps that is one reason the city continues resonating with modern audiences. Its story feels deeply human, not a story of conquest, not a story of rulers seeking glory, a story of ordinary people preparing for uncertainty, a story of communities working together, a story of resilience. And as archaeologists continued studying the region, another realization slowly emerged. The underground cities may reveal something even larger than their own history. They may offer a glimpse into a universal human instinct, the instinct to create safety, the instinct to protect loved ones, the instinct to preserve community when circumstances become difficult. That instinct appears throughout human history, across cultures, across continents, across centuries. Different societies expressed it differently. Some built walls, some built fortresses, some sought remote mountains. The people of Cappadocia carved cities into the earth. Different solutions. The same human desire. And once we recognize that, the underground city begins to feel less alien, less distant, less strange. Its builders may have lived long ago, but their motivations remain surprisingly familiar. They wanted security, they wanted continuity, they wanted a future. The same things people seek today. Yet even after all these discoveries, one question continues lingering in the darkness. A question that historians still discuss. If Derinkuyu was so effective, so carefully designed, and so deeply integrated into regional life, what specific events forced people to use it during its most active periods? What dangers transformed this hidden refuge from a backup plan into a living underground world? That question takes us even deeper into the turbulent history of ancient Anatolia, where armies, empires, faiths, and survival often intersected in unexpected ways. To understand why Derinkuyu may have been used so extensively, we must leave the tunnels for a moment and return to the surface. The world above ground was rarely quiet for long. Central Anatolia, the region where Cappadocia is located, occupied a position that many powerful civilizations considered important. It sat between worlds, between East and West, between competing kingdoms, between trade routes carrying goods, ideas, religions, and armies. For thousands of years, travelers crossed these lands. Merchants moved through with caravans loaded with textile, spices, metals, and precious goods. Messengers carried news from distant capitals. Pilgrims journeyed toward sacred destinations. And from time to time, soldiers marched across the same roads. The people of Cappadocia lived in a place connected to the wider world. That connection brought opportunities, but it also brought uncertainty. Imagine living in a village where news arrives slowly. There are no newspapers, no radio broadcasts, no phones, no internet. Information travels through human voices. A traveler arrives from the west, another arrives from the east. Stories begin circulating. A war has started somewhere. A ruler has died. A kingdom is expanding. An army has been seen on the horizon. No one knows exactly what will happen next. The future feels uncertain. For communities living under such conditions, preparation becomes extremely important. You cannot control every event. You cannot stop every invading force, but you can prepare. And preparation may be exactly what Derinkuyu represented. Not panic, not fear, preparation. The city beneath the earth was a way of creating options. If danger never arrived, life continued normally. If danger appeared, another path existed. The more historians examine ancient societies, the more they realize how valuable flexibility can be. Communities that adapt often survive. Communities that cannot adapt sometimes disappear. Derinkuyu provided adaptability on an extraordinary scale. One of the periods often discussed by historians involves the Byzantine era. During this time, the region experienced repeated conflicts. Various forces competed for influence. Raids and military campaigns sometimes threatened local populations. Under such conditions, underground refuge became particularly valuable. Imagine hearing that armed groups are approaching. Perhaps there are days to prepare, perhaps only hours. The details vary from event to event, but the response remains similar. Families gather supplies, livestock are moved, entrances are prepared, communities descend. Above ground, villages may appear abandoned. Below ground, life continues. There is something remarkable about the psychological strength required for such a system. Modern people often assume that security comes from visible defenses, walls, weapons, military strength. Derinkuyu reflects a different philosophy. Its power came from concealment. Instead of confronting danger directly, it avoided danger whenever possible. Instead of becoming a target, it became invisible. And invisibility can be surprisingly powerful. Nature offers many examples. Certain animals survive by hiding rather than fighting. Some blend into their surroundings. Others retreat into protective shelters. The underground city followed a similar principle. The best battle may have been the one that never occurred. The best defense may have been avoiding discovery altogether. This idea feels almost timeless. Across history, many communities have survived not because they were the strongest, but because they adapted intelligently. Derinkuyu stands as a monument to that kind of intelligence. Now let us move deeper into daily life. When we hear the phrase underground city, it is easy to imagine darkness and silence. Yet real cities are rarely silent. People create sound wherever they gather. Conversations echo through hallways. Footsteps move through passageways. Children laugh. Doors open and close. Meals are prepared. Animals make noise. Life produces activity. Derinkuyu was likely no different. At certain moments, especially during periods of refuge, the city may have felt surprisingly alive. Imagine walking through one of its corridors. You hear distant voices. You smell food being prepared. Lamps cast soft pools of light against stone walls. People move about their tasks. Some carry water, others organize supplies, some gather in communal spaces, others rest. Even underground, daily routines continue. This image helps us understand something important. The city was not merely architecture, it was a living environment, a place shaped by human relationships. History often focuses on rulers and battles, yet most people throughout history were not rulers or soldiers. They were parents, children, farmers, craftsmen, teachers, neighbors. The underground city existed for them. Its purpose was to support ordinary lives during extraordinary circumstances. That human dimension sometimes gets overlooked. Visitors see tunnels and chambers. Archaeologists see engineering and construction. But behind every tunnel stood a person. Behind every chamber stood a family. Behind every level stood generations of effort. The city becomes far more meaningful when viewed through that lens. As time passes slowly, another question emerges. How long did it take to create something this large? Unfortunately, no one knows with certainty. The answer may stretch across centuries, perhaps even longer. This uncertainty actually tells us something important. Derinkuyu was probably not built according to a single master plan. Instead, it appears to have evolved gradually. Much like a tree adding rings year after year, the city expanded over time. A chamber proved useful. Another was added. A passage connected two areas. Additional storage became necessary. New levels were excavated. Generation after generation contributed. The final result reflects cumulative effort rather than a single moment of construction. This process is surprisingly common in history. Many famous cities evolved gradually. Roads appeared, buildings expanded, neighborhoods grew. No single individual designed every detail. The city emerged through countless decisions made over time. Derinkuyu seems to have followed a similar pattern. The difference is that its growth occurred underground. That fact alone makes it feel extraordinary. Yet in another sense, it reflects a very familiar human behavior. People adapt their environments to meet changing needs. The underground city simply represents adaptation on an impressive scale. Now let us think about labor. Imagine carving chambers into stone using ancient tools. The work would have been demanding. Dust filled the air. Progress occurred slowly. Every new space required effort. Every new tunnel required patience. There were no power drills, no industrial machinery, no modern excavation equipment, only human hands, human skill, human determination. When modern visitors walk through Derinkuyu, it is easy to focus on the finished result. But every wall represents labor. Every corridor represents labor. Every shaft represents labor. The city contains countless hours of human effort preserved in stone. In a way, it functions as a giant record of work, a physical expression of persistence. This realization often changes how people perceive ancient societies. The builders were not passive figures waiting for history to happen. They actively shaped their world. They solved problems. They planned ahead. They invested in the future. Derinkuyu exists because ordinary people consistently made choices that benefited future generations. That idea feels especially powerful. Many of those who carved the tunnels would never see the city reach its final form, yet they continued building. They contributed to something larger than themselves. Their descendants benefited from work completed decades or centuries earlier. History contains many examples of this kind of long-term thinking. Cathedrals took generations to complete. Irrigation systems evolved over centuries. Road networks expanded across lifetimes. The underground city belongs in that tradition. A project so large that no single lifetime could fully contain it. As we move farther into the story, another fascinating mystery appears. Temperature. One reason underground spaces remain useful is their stability. Above ground, weather changes constantly. Summer brings heat. Winter brings cold. Storms arrive unexpectedly. Temperatures fluctuate. Underground environments behave differently. The surrounding earth acts as insulation. Conditions remain relatively stable throughout the year. For ancient communities, this offered significant advantages. Food preservation improved. Living conditions became more predictable. Extreme weather became less disruptive. In some respects, the underground city functioned like a naturally climate-controlled environment. The builders may not have used modern scientific terminology, yet they clearly understood practical benefits. Again and again, Derinkuyu reveals this pattern: observation, experience, adaptation. The city reflects generations learning from their environment and responding intelligently. And perhaps that is why it continues captivating modern audiences. The story is not merely about tunnels, it is about human ingenuity. When confronted with challenges, people found solutions. When confronted with uncertainty, people prepared. When confronted with danger, people adapted. These themes feel timeless. They connect us to individuals who lived centuries ago. The details differ. The underlying human experience remains familiar. Now let us return to the moment of rediscovery once more. The man who uncovered part of Derinkuyu in the 20th century could not have known what lay beyond that wall. At first, there was only curiosity, an unexpected opening, a hidden space, then another, and another. The discovery reminds us that history often survives in surprising ways. Entire chapters of the human story can remain hidden for centuries. Sometimes they wait beneath forests, sometimes beneath deserts, sometimes beneath cities, and sometimes beneath ordinary homes. The underground city challenges our assumptions about what has been lost and what remains. How many other forgotten places still exist? How many stories remain buried? How many achievements await rediscovery? Archaeology is, in many ways, a conversation with the past. Each discovery adds a new voice. Each artifact contributes another clue. Each excavation reveals another fragment of a much larger story. Derinkuyu speaks with a particularly fascinating voice. It tells us that human creativity often appears in unexpected forms. Not every great achievement stands proudly in sunlight. Some achievements hide in darkness. Some survive through secrecy. Some endure because they were built to protect rather than impress. And perhaps that is one reason the city feels so memorable. Its greatness was never intended to be seen. Yet centuries later, people from around the world travel to witness it. They descend into tunnels carved by forgotten hands. They walk through chambers shaped long ago. They imagine lives once lived beneath the earth. And in doing so, they become part of the city's continuing story. Because history is not only about the past, history is also about remembrance. The moment we learn about a place, we help keep its story alive. The moment we share that story, it travels farther. Derinkuyu survived physically through stone. It survives culturally through memory. And today, its memory continues growing. Yet despite everything we have explored so far, perhaps the most profound mystery is not who built the city, nor how it was built, nor even why it was built. Perhaps the deepest mystery is what it reveals about human nature itself. For hidden within its tunnels is a quiet lesson about resilience, cooperation, patience, and the extraordinary ability of people to create hope even in uncertain times. And as we continue our journey deeper into that lesson, the underground city begins to feel less like a historical curiosity and more like a mirror reflecting something timeless about humanity. As we spend more time with the story of Derinkuyu, something interesting begins to happen. The city slowly transforms in our imagination. At first, it seems like a mystery of stone, a puzzle carved into the earth, a remarkable engineering achievement hidden beneath a quiet landscape. But the longer we look, the more we begin to see people instead of tunnels. We begin to see lives instead of architecture. And perhaps that is where the real story exists. Imagine a child growing up in ancient Cappadocia. The child knows the valleys, the fields, and the familiar shapes of the strange rock formations that rise from the land. But the child also knows something else, the world beneath. Perhaps an elder takes their hand and guides them through a hidden entrance. A lamp flickers softly. The passage slopes downward. The air becomes cooler. Stone walls surround them. The child learns where the storage rooms are located, learns which tunnels lead to important chambers, learns how the great stone doors work, learns where water can be found. To an outsider, the underground city is a mystery. To the child, it is simply part of life. This perspective is important because it reminds us that extraordinary places often feel ordinary to the people who inhabit them. Consider modern cities. A visitor may be amazed by towering buildings, complex transportation systems, or vast networks of roads. Residents often move through those same spaces without much thought. Familiarity changes perception. Derinkuyu may have inspired wonder among outsiders, but for generations of local inhabitants it may have felt practical and familiar. A useful part of the world, not a miracle, not a mystery, just home. This thought helps bridge the distance between past and present. The people who lived there were not characters in a legend. They were human beings navigating daily life. They worried about food. They worried about family. They worried about the future. The same concerns that occupy people today. Only the circumstances were different. The solutions were different. The underground city was one of those solutions. As time passed, the city became woven into the rhythm of life. Above ground, seasons changed. Spring brought growth. Summer brought warmth. Autumn brought harvests. Winter brought cold winds across the landscape. Below ground, life remained remarkably stable. The earth softened the extremes. Temperatures stayed relatively constant. Supplies remained protected. The underground environment offered a sense of reliability in a world that could often feel uncertain. There is something psychologically comforting about reliability. Human beings naturally seek places that feel secure, places where the unexpected becomes a little less threatening. For many communities throughout history, that security came from walls or fortifications. For the people of Cappadocia, it came from the earth itself. The ground beneath their feet became an ally, a source of protection, a source of stability, a source of survival. Few civilizations have developed such an intimate relationship with their landscape. Most people live upon the land. The inhabitants of Derinkuyu learned how to live within it. Now let us consider another fascinating aspect of the city: silence. Modern visitors often comment on the atmosphere underground. Even when tourists are present, certain sections possess an unusual stillness. Sounds behave differently beneath the earth. Echoes travel through passages. Voices become softened by distance. Footsteps resonate against stone. The city has its own acoustic character, its own soundscape. Imagine what that soundscape may have been like centuries ago. The soft murmur of conversations, the scrape of tools against rock, the movement of animals, the crackle of lamps, the distant echo of footsteps from another level. These sounds would have formed part of daily life, a hidden world with its own rhythms, its own routines, its own atmosphere. And yet, during moments of danger, silence may have become especially important. Imagine hundreds or even thousands of people sheltering underground while uncertainty exists above. Noise could reveal activity. Noise could attract attention. Communities may have learned when to speak softly, when to remain quiet, when caution mattered most. The city itself seems designed with awareness of such realities. Narrow passages, hidden entrances, defensive doors. Everything reflects careful thought. Everything reflects preparation. The more we examine Derinkuyu, the more one theme appears again and again: preparedness. Not panic, not fear, preparedness. The builders accepted that uncertainty existed. Instead of ignoring it, they planned for it. There is wisdom in that approach. Throughout history, communities that prepared thoughtfully often weathered challenges more successfully than those that did not. Derinkuyu stands as a physical expression of long-term planning, a monument to foresight. A city created not only for the present but for future possibilities. And perhaps that explains why it survived. The city was built around adaptation. Adaptable systems tend to endure. Rigid systems often struggle. Nature demonstrates this lesson repeatedly. Flexible trees survive storms that break more rigid ones. Adaptable species survive environmental change. Communities capable of adjusting often outlast those that cannot. Derinkuyu embodies adaptation in stone. Now let us move deeper into the experience of time. One of the most intriguing aspects of archaeological sites is the way they compress centuries into a single place. When we walk through Derinkuyu today, we move through spaces shaped by countless generations. A chamber may have been expanded centuries after it was first created. A tunnel may have connected areas built during different periods. A storage room may have served families separated by hundreds of years. The city contains layers of history intertwined together. This means that no single moment defines Derinkuyu. It was not born in one year. It did not reach completion in one generation. It evolved continuously. Imagine a family living in the city during one century. Then imagine another family occupying similar spaces 200 years later. Their languages may differ. Their customs may differ. Their beliefs may differ. Yet both participate in the same underground tradition. Both inherit the work of earlier generations. Both contribute to the city's continuing story. History often functions this way. People inherit worlds they did not create. Then they modify those worlds before passing them onward. The underground city is a powerful example of that process. No single group can claim full ownership of its story. Many generations shaped it. Many communities contributed to it. Its history belongs to a long chain of human effort. That chain stretches across centuries, perhaps even millennia. And that realization inspires another thought. Most of the builders remain anonymous. Their names are gone, their faces are gone, their personal stories are gone, yet their work survives. There is something humbling about that. Modern culture often celebrates individuals, famous leaders, famous inventors, famous artists. History, however, is also shaped by countless ordinary people whose names never appear in records. The underground city exists because of those people. Stone by stone, tunnel by tunnel, generation by generation. Their contributions accumulated, their efforts combined. Together they created something extraordinary. In many ways, Derinkuyu honors collective achievement more than individual achievement. No king built it alone. No architect designed every part. The city emerged from cooperation, and cooperation may be one of humanity's greatest strengths. When people work together across generations, remarkable things become possible. Road networks span continents. Libraries preserve knowledge. Agricultural systems feed populations. And underground cities appear beneath the earth. The story of Derinkuyu reminds us of that truth. As time passes slowly, let us think about darkness once more. Modern people often associate darkness with fear because electric light has become so common. We are accustomed to bright environments. Streetlights illuminate cities, screens glow constantly. Artificial light follows us almost everywhere. Ancient people experienced darkness differently. Night was a normal part of life. Oil lamps, torches, firelight. These were familiar sources of illumination. The inhabitants of Derinkuyu would have developed routines suited to such conditions. Their eyes adapted. Their movements adapted. Their daily habits adapted. The underground environment required awareness and experience. And over generations, those skills became second nature. This is another reminder that human beings are remarkably adaptable creatures. We often underestimate our capacity to adjust because we become accustomed to modern conveniences. Yet history repeatedly demonstrates how flexible people can be. Given enough time, communities learn. They innovate. They adapt. The underground city stands as evidence of that adaptability. Now consider another question. What did visitors think when they first encountered these underground spaces centuries ago? Imagine arriving from a distant region. Perhaps you have never seen anything similar. Someone guides you toward a hidden entrance. You descend into the earth. The tunnel continues farther than expected, then farther still. Rooms appear. Passages branch in multiple directions. Ventilation shafts stretch upward. Storage chambers line the walls. The scale gradually reveals itself. At some point, surprise becomes astonishment. Even ancient travelers may have reacted that way. The city was unusual in its own time. Its existence challenged expectations. Its complexity inspired curiosity. That reaction continues today. Visitors descend into Derinkuyu and experience a similar sense of wonder. Different centuries, different cultures, the same amazement. Few archaeological sites create such an immediate emotional response. Part of the reason is simple. The underground city feels personal. You do not merely observe it from a distance. You enter it, you walk through it, you experience its spaces directly. The environment surrounds you. History becomes tangible. The past feels close, very close. And perhaps that is why Derinkuyu remains one of the most memorable archaeological sites in the world. Not because it is the largest, not because it is the oldest, but because it allows people to step physically into another way of life. For a brief moment, visitors experience a world shaped by different assumptions. A world where safety lies beneath the earth. A world where invisibility becomes strength. A world where communities prepare patiently for uncertainty. That experience lingers in memory, long after the visit ends, long after the journey home. And as archaeologists continue exploring, mapping, and studying the underground city, they keep uncovering new details about how that world functioned. Each discovery adds depth. Each discovery adds texture. Each discovery helps transform stone chambers into human stories. Yet the deeper researchers look, the clearer it becomes that Derinkuyu is not simply a story about survival. It is also a story about imagination. Because before anyone could carve a city into the earth, someone had to imagine that such a thing was possible. Someone had to look at the soft volcanic rock of Cappadocia and see more than stone. They had to see potential. They had to see shelter. They had to see opportunity. That creative leap may be one of the most important moments in the entire story. For every great achievement begins with a new way of seeing the world. And deep beneath the valleys of Cappadocia, generations of people transformed that vision into reality, creating a hidden city that would outlive empires, outlive kingdoms, and eventually become one of the most fascinating mysteries ever discovered beneath the earth. The longer we remain with the story of Derinkuyu, the more extraordinary one fact becomes. The city was never meant to be famous. It was never built to attract visitors. It was never intended to inspire admiration from distant lands. Its purpose was almost the opposite. It was designed not to be noticed, to remain hidden, to remain protected, to remain unknown whenever possible. And yet, thousands of years later, people travel from around the world to see it. There is a certain irony in that. A city created for secrecy has become one of the most famous underground places on Earth. But perhaps that irony reveals something deeper about human nature. We are endlessly fascinated by hidden things, hidden treasures, hidden worlds, hidden knowledge. There is something powerful about discovering that reality contains more than we first imagined. Derinkuyu embodies that feeling perfectly. From the surface, the landscape appears beautiful but ordinary enough. Valleys, hills, rock formations, small towns, the sky stretching overhead. Nothing immediately suggests that an enormous underground world exists below, and then comes the realization. Everything visible above ground represents only part of the story. Another story exists underneath, a hidden chapter waiting patiently in darkness. That realization changes how we see the landscape, and perhaps it changes how we see history as well. Because Derinkuyu teaches us that the past often contains invisible layers. What survives above ground is not always the whole picture. Sometimes the most important stories are hidden. Sometimes they are buried. Sometimes they wait centuries before being rediscovered. As time passes slowly, let us imagine one particular evening long ago. The sun is setting over Cappadocia. Golden light touches the strange rock formations. Shadows lengthen across the valleys. Farmers finish their work. Animals are gathered. Families prepare evening meals. At first glance, everything appears peaceful. Yet somewhere in the distance, troubling news has arrived. Travelers have reported unrest. Rumors spread from village to village. No one knows exactly what will happen, but people have heard such stories before. They understand uncertainty. They understand preparation. And so, quietly and without panic, plans begin. Supplies are checked. Entrances are inspected. Families discuss what may be necessary. The underground city waits below, ready if needed. This image helps us appreciate one of Derinkuyu's greatest strengths. Its value existed even when it was not being used. Simply knowing that refuge was available may have provided comfort. The city represented possibility, a backup plan, a source of reassurance. Modern societies often rely on similar concepts: emergency services, reserve resources, disaster preparedness plans, insurance systems. Many protective measures spend most of their time waiting. Their importance becomes clear only when they are needed. Derinkuyu may have functioned in much the same way. The city beneath the earth was a form of preparation made permanent. And preparation has a remarkable psychological effect. It reduces uncertainty. It creates confidence. It allows communities to face challenges with greater resilience. Perhaps the people of Cappadocia understood this intuitively. Perhaps they knew that security begins long before danger arrives. Now let us consider another fascinating mystery. How did knowledge of construction spread? The city required specialized skills. Ventilation systems had to function correctly. Structural stability had to be maintained. Water access had to remain reliable. Defensive features had to work effectively. These abilities did not appear magically. Someone learned them. Someone taught them. Someone preserved them. Imagine experienced builders sharing techniques with younger generations. Perhaps they demonstrated how to identify suitable rock. Perhaps they explained where support was necessary. Perhaps they taught methods for creating ventilation shafts. Knowledge passed from person to person, generation to generation, a chain stretching through centuries. This process reminds us that every civilization depends on education, not necessarily formal education, but the transfer of knowledge. Without that transfer, skills disappear. With it, remarkable achievements become possible. The underground city stands as evidence that important knowledge once flourished in Cappadocia. Knowledge rooted in observation, knowledge rooted in experience, knowledge refined over long periods of time. Modern archaeology often focuses on physical remains, but behind every physical achievement lies invisible knowledge. The tunnels survive. The lessons that created them largely do not. And that may be one of the greatest losses history can experience. Buildings can sometimes endure for millennia. Knowledge is more fragile. It must be actively preserved. Once forgotten, it can vanish surprisingly quickly. Derinkuyu reminds us of that truth. The city remains. Much of the expertise that created it has faded into mystery. Yet traces remain visible in every carefully carved chamber. As we continue deeper into reflection, another question emerges. What did the builders think about the future? When people invest enormous effort into long-term projects, they usually believe those projects will matter to future generations. The builders of Derinkuyu were no different. Every tunnel represented faith in tomorrow. Every chamber represented confidence that descendants would benefit. Every expansion reflected long-term thinking. In many ways, the city was an act of optimism. That may sound surprising. After all, we often associate defensive structures with fear. But consider another perspective. Creating refuge requires belief in survival. Why prepare for the future unless you believe a future exists? Why preserve resources unless you expect people to need them? Why expand a city unless you imagine generations yet to come? Seen through this lens, Derinkuyu becomes more than a response to danger. It becomes a statement of hope, a declaration that communities intended to endure, a declaration that families intended to survive, a declaration that life would continue despite uncertainty. This optimistic dimension often goes unnoticed, yet it may be one of the city's most meaningful characteristics. History is filled with examples of human resilience. Again and again, communities confronted challenges. Again and again, they found ways to continue. Derinkuyu belongs within that larger story, a story not of despair but persistence, not of surrender but adaptation. Now let us descend once more into the underground corridors. Imagine carrying a small lamp. The passage stretches ahead. Stone walls glow softly in the light. The air remains cool and steady. At an intersection, multiple tunnels branch away into darkness. Some lead toward living areas, others toward storage chambers, others toward deeper levels. The city feels almost endless. Every turn suggests another hidden space. Every corridor suggests another story. Archaeologists often describe a similar feeling during exploration. The city reveals itself gradually. One chamber leads to another. One discovery leads to another. The underground world unfolds step by step. Even today, despite decades of study, there remains a sense that Derinkuyu has not yet revealed everything. And perhaps that sense of mystery is appropriate. Some places deserve a little mystery, not because facts are unimportant, but because mystery encourages imagination. It reminds us that the past is larger than our current understanding. There will always be questions. There will always be gaps. There will always be opportunities for future discovery. Derinkuyu teaches humility in that regard. The city reminds us that history is never fully complete. Every answer generates new questions. Every discovery opens new possibilities. This ongoing process keeps the past alive. Now let us think about memory. Human beings are storytelling creatures. For thousands of years, people preserved knowledge through stories. Stories explained origins. Stories preserved values. Stories carried information across generations. One cannot help wondering what stories were told within the underground city. What tales echoed through its corridors? What legends passed between families? What memories were shared during long evenings beneath the earth? We may never know the details, yet we know such stories existed. Every community creates them. Every generation contributes to them. The city was not merely filled with people. It was filled with conversations, filled with memories, filled with hopes, filled with fears, filled with stories. The stone walls remain, the voices have faded. But imagining those voices helps restore a little life to the archaeological remains. History becomes richer when we remember that ancient sites were once inhabited by real people. People who laughed, people who worried, people who dreamed, people who loved their families and wanted them to be safe. The underground city mattered because those lives mattered. And perhaps that is the deepest lesson archaeology can teach. Artifacts matter because people mattered. Buildings matter because people lived within them. History matters because it connects us to human experience. Derinkuyu is remarkable not only because it was built underground. It is remarkable because it reveals how creative human beings can be when confronted with challenges. As time passes slowly, another fascinating comparison comes to mind. Throughout history, civilizations have responded to danger in many different ways. Some built castles. Some constructed walls stretching across vast distances. Some established fortified hilltop settlements. Some relied on natural barriers such as rivers or mountains. The people of Cappadocia chose another path. They turned the earth itself into protection. Each solution reflects local conditions. Castles require suitable locations. Walls require enormous resources. Hilltop fortresses depend on geography. Underground cities depend on geology. The soft volcanic rock of Cappadocia made Derinkuyu possible. Without that unique environment, the city could never have existed. This highlights an important truth. Human history is shaped by both creativity and environment. People adapt to the opportunities available around them. The landscape influences solutions. Resources influence possibilities. Culture influences decisions. Derinkuyu emerged from the interaction of all three: human creativity, local geology, historical necessity. Together they produce something unique, something unlike almost any other settlement on Earth. And yet, despite its uniqueness, the city still reflects universal human themes: preparation, adaptation, community, resilience, hope. These themes appear across cultures and centuries. That is why the story feels familiar even when the setting feels extraordinary. The tunnels may belong to ancient Cappadocia. The underlying human experience belongs to all of us. As we continue moving through the hidden world beneath the earth, another question begins to emerge from the darkness. If Derinkuyu represents one of humanity's greatest examples of adaptation and survival, what eventually changed? What happened in the centuries that followed? Why did communities gradually stop relying on these remarkable underground refuges? And how did a city that once played such an important role slowly slip into silence, leaving only traces behind for future generations to rediscover? Every city, no matter how remarkable, eventually faces the same challenge: change. Sometimes change arrives suddenly: a war, a disaster, a political revolution. But more often, change arrives quietly. One generation replaces another. Old habits fade. New opportunities appear. Gradually, the world becomes different. The story of Derinkuyu seems to have followed that quieter path. There was no single moment when the underground city simply stopped existing. No dramatic day when its tunnels were abandoned forever. Instead, its role slowly evolved. The circumstances that had made it essential began to shift. The world above ground changed. And as the surface world changed, so did the need for the hidden world below. To understand this transformation, we must imagine the long flow of centuries. Empires rose and fell across Anatolia. Trade routes changed direction. Political borders moved. Technologies improved. Methods of defense evolved. Communities adapted to new realities. The underground city remained available, but perhaps it became necessary less often. When a tool is used frequently, knowledge surrounding it remains strong. When a tool is needed only occasionally, that knowledge can begin to weaken. Think of an old path through a forest. As long as people walk it regularly, it remains visible. When fewer people use it, plants begin growing over it. Eventually, the path becomes difficult to see. The same process can happen with traditions, with skills, with memories, and perhaps even with underground cities. As reliance on Derinkuyu decreased, portions of the knowledge required to maintain and navigate it may have gradually faded. Not all at once, little by little. A family remembers one passage. Their grandchildren remember only part of it. Another generation remembers less. The city remains physically present, but its place in everyday life slowly diminishes. This process is surprisingly common in history. Many ancient technologies vanished not because they became impossible, but because they became unnecessary. Skills survive when people continue practicing them. Without regular use, even valuable knowledge can disappear. Derinkuyu reminds us how fragile cultural memory can be. The stone endures. Memory does not always endure as easily. And yet, despite this gradual fading, the underground city never completely vanished. It lingered at the edges of awareness. Certain chambers continued being used. Some tunnels remain known to local communities. Pieces of knowledge survived. The connection was weakened, but not entirely broken. This partial survival may explain why rediscovery eventually became possible. The city was forgotten by many but not erased completely. It remained beneath the earth, waiting, patiently, silently, almost like a sleeping giant beneath the landscape. As time passes slowly, let us consider the concept of hidden history. Most people imagine history as something visible, ruins standing in open fields, ancient monuments rising against the horizon, old buildings preserved in cities. Yet some of the most fascinating chapters of the human story are hidden, buried beneath sand, covered by forests, submerged beneath water, or in the case of Derinkuyu, concealed beneath ordinary homes and streets. This hidden nature gives archaeology a special quality. Every excavation contains possibility. Every discovery has the potential to transform understanding. Researchers may believe they know a region's history. Then a new site emerges. A new artifact appears. A new clue changes the narrative. Derinkuyu represents one of those transformative discoveries. Before its rediscovery, few people imagined the full scale of what existed beneath Cappadocia. After its rediscovery, historians had to rethink assumptions. The region's history became richer, more complex, more fascinating. That process continues even today. Every generation asks new questions. Every generation uncovers new details. History is not a finished book. It is an ongoing conversation. The underground city remains part of that conversation. Now let us imagine the first archaeologists descending into newly explored sections. The atmosphere must have been extraordinary. A flashlight beam cuts through darkness. Dust hangs in still air. Ancient corridors stretch ahead. Every chamber offers the possibility of new information. Every turn may reveal something unexpected. Exploration in such environments requires patience, care, attention to detail. Researchers cannot rush. They must document carefully, observe carefully, interpret carefully. The underground city does not reveal its secrets easily. It asks for patience. Perhaps that is fitting. After all, the city itself was created through patience. Generation after generation, year after year, slow effort accumulated into something remarkable. Modern understanding grows in much the same way. Small discoveries accumulate. Gradually, a larger picture emerges. One detail at a time, one insight at a time, one passage at a time. This rhythm of slow discovery feels perfectly suited to Derinkuyu. The city rewards curiosity, but it rewards patient curiosity most of all. As we move deeper into reflection, another fascinating aspect becomes apparent. Derinkuyu challenges our assumptions about progress. Modern society often imagines history as a straight line. Ancient people knew less. Modern people know more. Ancient solutions were simple. Modern solutions are sophisticated. Reality is rarely that straightforward. The underground city demonstrates forms of knowledge that remain impressive even today. Its ventilation systems functioned effectively. Its defensive features were ingenious. Its use of local geology was highly intelligent. Its long-term sustainability reflected careful planning. The builders lacked modern technology, yet they possessed deep practical understanding. Recognizing this does not diminish modern achievements. Instead, it broadens our appreciation of human ingenuity across time. Every era solves problems differently. Different tools, different resources, different challenges. The underground city reminds us that intelligence takes many forms. Ancient people were not waiting for modernity to arrive. They were actively shaping their own world using the knowledge available to them. And in doing so, they created something extraordinary. Perhaps that is one reason Derinkuyu continues inspiring visitors. The city expands our sense of what human beings are capable of. It reminds us that creativity did not begin recently. Innovation did not begin recently. Complex thinking did not begin recently. These qualities have accompanied humanity for a very long time. The underground city is evidence of that. Now let us pause and imagine another scene. A family emerges from the underground city after an extended period below. Perhaps weeks have passed. Perhaps danger has moved elsewhere. Perhaps the crisis has ended. Slowly, the great stone doors are opened. Passages become active. People begin ascending toward daylight. The first glimpse of the sky appears. Fresh air moves across the landscape. Fields stretch into the distance. Birds cross the horizon. The surface world is waiting. Imagine the relief. Imagine the gratitude. Imagine the simple pleasure of standing beneath open skies once again. Moments like these may have occurred many times throughout the city's history. Periods of refuge followed by returns to normal life. Periods of uncertainty followed by recovery. The underground city was not intended to replace the surface world. It existed to preserve access to it. That distinction matters. The goal was always continuation, continuity, survival until better days returned. In that sense, Derinkuyu reflects a profoundly hopeful philosophy. Difficult times are temporary. Communities can endure them. Life can continue afterward. The city was built around that belief. A belief that tomorrow mattered. A belief that the future deserved preparation. A belief that survival was worthwhile. Those ideas feel timeless. Across cultures and centuries, people have found strength in similar convictions. History often focuses on dramatic events, yet resilience may be the more important story. The ability to continue, the ability to adapt, the ability to endure. Derinkuyu stands as a monument to those qualities. As time passes slowly, another thought emerges. What if the builders could see the city today? What if they could witness modern visitors walking through their tunnels? What if they could hear archaeologists discussing their achievements? What would they think? Perhaps they would be surprised that their work survived. Perhaps they would be amazed that people traveled from distant countries to see it. Perhaps they would simply be pleased that the city fulfilled its purpose. After all, their goal was not fame. Their goal was preservation. And in a sense, they succeeded beyond anything they could have imagined. The city protected generations during its active life. Then, long after its original purpose faded, it preserved something else. A record of human creativity, a record of adaptation, a record of resilience. Their achievement continued protecting a story, protecting memory, protecting history itself. That is a remarkable legacy. Many ancient structures survive. Few communicate such a clear lesson about human ingenuity. The underground city speaks across centuries. Message is quiet but powerful. When circumstances become difficult, people adapt. When challenges arise, people create solutions. When uncertainty appears, communities work together. Again and again, humanity demonstrates these qualities. Derinkuyu simply makes them visible, or perhaps more accurately, visible once it was finally rediscovered. And yet, for all we have learned, the city still retains an air of mystery. Some passages remain unexplored. Some questions remain unanswered. Some stories remain hidden. There is something comforting about that. Not every mystery needs complete resolution. Sometimes a little uncertainty enriches understanding. It leaves room for imagination, room for curiosity, room for future discovery. The underground city continues offering all three. Perhaps somewhere beneath Cappadocia, additional chambers still wait in darkness. Perhaps forgotten passages remain sealed. Perhaps future archaeologists will uncover new evidence that changes what we think we know. History has surprised us before. It will almost certainly surprise us again. And if that happens, Derinkuyu will once again remind us that the past is far larger than any single generation can fully understand. For now, however, let us continue walking slowly through its corridors. Let us continue listening to the echoes of forgotten footsteps. Let us continue exploring the hidden world beneath the earth. Because the deeper we travel into the story of Derinkuyu, the clearer it becomes that this underground city is not only a mystery of architecture, it is a mystery of people, of memory, of survival, and of the extraordinary ways human beings shape the world around them, even in the darkest places. As we continue deeper into the story, it becomes easier to understand why Derinkuyu captures the imagination of so many people. It is not merely because the city exists underground. Human beings have created caves, tunnels, and shelters in many places throughout history. What makes Derinkuyu different is the scale of the vision behind it. Someone looked beneath the surface of the earth and saw a possibility. Not a hiding place for a few people, not a storage room, not a temporary refuge, but an entire world. That idea alone is remarkable. Imagine standing in Cappadocia thousands of years ago. Landscape stretches before you. The strange stone formations rise against the horizon. The wind moves gently through the valleys. Most people looking at that landscape would see only what exists above ground. Yet some individuals saw something more. They saw potential beneath their feet, potential hidden inside the soft volcanic rock, potential waiting to be revealed through patience and effort. Many great achievements in history begin exactly this way, not with resources, not with power, but with imagination. Before something exists in reality, it must first exist in someone's mind. A bridge, a city, a road, a library, an underground world all begin as ideas. The builders of Derinkuyu transformed an idea into stone. And then generation after generation, others expanded that idea, protected it, improved it, until eventually it became one of the most extraordinary places ever created by human hands. As time passes slowly, let us imagine one of those builders, not a king, not a famous leader, just an ordinary worker. Perhaps he spends part of his day farming. Perhaps she helps manage supplies. Perhaps their family has lived in Cappadocia for generations. At some point they join others in expanding a passage, a few more meters of tunnel, another small chamber, a repair to an existing wall. The work feels ordinary, necessary, practical. They probably do not imagine that thousands of years later people will study these tunnels. Most historical achievements are created this way, not through dramatic moments, but through countless ordinary efforts. Small contributions accumulate. One person adds a chamber, another strengthens a passage, another improves ventilation, another teaches the next generation. Over time, those contributions become something far greater than any individual effort. Derinkuyu stands as a reminder that history is often built collectively, not by a few famous names, but by many ordinary people working together. There is something deeply comforting about that idea. It reminds us that meaningful achievements do not always require fame. Sometimes they require persistence. Sometimes they require cooperation. Sometimes they require patience. The underground city reflects all three. Now let us think about fear for a moment. Not dramatic fear, not the kind found in stories and movies, but the quiet uncertainty that people throughout history have often faced. The uncertainty of not knowing what tomorrow will bring. Will the harvest succeed? Will the weather cooperate? Will travelers bring good news or troubling news? Will peace continue, or will conditions change? Ancient people lived with these questions constantly. The world could be unpredictable, yet Derinkuyu suggests a fascinating response. Rather than allowing uncertainty to dominate their lives, people prepared for it. Preparation transformed fear into action. Instead of worrying endlessly about potential dangers, they created solutions. The underground city became one of those solutions. In that sense, Derinkuyu teaches a surprisingly modern lesson. Human beings cannot eliminate uncertainty, but they can respond thoughtfully to it. They can prepare. They can adapt. They can cooperate. The builders of the underground city seem to have understood this principle very well. Now let us descend deeper once more. The lower levels of Derinkuyu remain among its most fascinating features. As archaeologists explored farther underground, they discovered that the city extended much deeper than early visitors had expected. Level after level emerged from the darkness. Passages connected chambers. Chambers connected larger spaces. The complexity continued increasing. Imagine the experience of discovering this. You believe you have reached the bottom. Then another passage appears. You follow it. Another level emerges. The city continues. The process repeats, again and again. The underground world seems determined to reveal itself gradually, almost reluctantly, as though each level guards another secret below. This layered structure contributes greatly to the city's mystery. People naturally wonder how much remains undiscovered. How many passages have collapsed? How many chambers remain hidden? How much of the original city has survived? Archaeologists continue searching for answers. And perhaps future generations will uncover more. History often rewards patience. New technologies reveal details previous generations could not detect. New methods produce new insights. What seems hidden today may become visible tomorrow. The story of Derinkuyu is still being written in that sense, not by builders this time, but by researchers, historians, and explorers. Each contributes another piece to the puzzle. Each helps illuminate another corner of the underground world. As we move forward, another fascinating aspect deserves attention: water. Modern people often take water systems for granted. Turn a faucet, water appears. Ancient communities faced a much different reality. Reliable water access could determine whether a settlement thrived or struggled. The builders of Derinkuyu understood this clearly. The city included wells and water systems carefully integrated into its design. This was not an afterthought. It was essential. Without water, extended refuge underground would have been impossible. Again, we see evidence of thoughtful planning. The city was not merely large, it was functional. Every major requirement of community life appears to have been considered: air, water, food, security, communication, storage. The deeper researchers look, the more impressive this planning becomes. It reflects systems thinking long before modern terminology existed. The builders understood that successful communities depend upon many interconnected elements. Remove one element and problems emerge. Support all elements and resilience increases. Derinkuyu demonstrates this understanding repeatedly. And perhaps that is why modern engineers often admire ancient achievements. The technology differs. The underlying problem solving remains familiar. Good solutions tend to share certain qualities regardless of era. They are practical, efficient, adaptable. The underground city displays all three. Now let us imagine another moment from long ago. A gathering inside one of the larger chambers. Families sit together. Lamps provide soft light. Outside, somewhere beyond the earth above, uncertainty exists. Yet inside the chamber there is community, conversation, connection, people sharing stories, perhaps discussing events, perhaps remembering ancestors, perhaps planning for the future. Human beings have always gathered this way, around fires, in homes, in meeting halls, in temples, and in the case of Derinkuyu beneath the earth. The location changes. The human behavior remains remarkably consistent. People seek connection. People seek belonging. People seek community. The underground city supported these needs just as it supported physical survival. This social dimension is easy to overlook, yet it may have been among the most important. A community survives not only through resources, it survives through relationships, trust, shared knowledge, mutual support. Derinkuyu provided a framework for all of these. Its tunnels connected more than rooms, they connected people. As centuries passed, those connections helped sustain generations. Now let us step back and look at the larger picture. History contains many famous structures, the pyramids of ancient Egypt, great walls, magnificent temples, enormous palaces. Most were designed to be seen, to inspire awe, to communicate power. Derinkuyu occupies a very different category. Its success depended on remaining unseen. Its greatness depended on invisibility. This distinction makes it unique. Many monuments announce themselves proudly. Derinkuyu whispered. Many civilizations built upward. Derinkuyu built downward. Many rulers sought attention. The builders of the underground city sought security. These differences give the city a special character. Its story feels more intimate, more personal, more connected to ordinary lives. Perhaps that is why modern audiences find it so compelling. The city reflects values that feel deeply human: care for family, preparation for uncertainty, community cooperation, long-term thinking. These themes resonate across cultures and centuries. As time passes slowly, let us consider another possibility. What lessons might future generations draw from Derinkuyu? Not lessons about copying underground cities. The world has changed. Conditions have changed. Technology has changed. But some lessons remain timeless. The value of preparation, the importance of adaptability, the strength of cooperation, the power of imagination. These ideas remain relevant regardless of era. The underground city demonstrates what becomes possible when communities think beyond immediate needs, when they plan for the future, when they invest in resilience, when they work together across generations. Such lessons extend far beyond archaeology. They speak to broader aspects of human experience. And perhaps that is one reason the city continues attracting attention. Its story is not trapped in the past. Its themes remain surprisingly current. As we continue walking through the hidden corridors of history, another realization slowly emerges. The greatest mystery of Derinkuyu may not be how it was built, or who built it, or even why it was built. The greatest mystery may be how human beings repeatedly find ways to adapt to whatever challenges they encounter. Across deserts, across mountains, across oceans, and in this case beneath the earth itself. Again and again, humanity demonstrates extraordinary creativity. The underground city stands as one example among many, yet it may be one of the most memorable examples ever discovered, because unlike many achievements, it remained hidden, waiting, silent beneath the landscape, preserved by darkness, protected by time. And only when the modern world stumbled upon its entrances once again did the full scale of the achievement begin to reveal itself. Even now, after decades of research, the city still seems to hold something back, some final secret, some remaining mystery, a reminder that the past is never completely finished revealing itself. And perhaps, somewhere in the cool darkness beneath Cappadocia, there are still stories waiting patiently to be uncovered. And so, after descending through countless tunnels, walking through chambers carved by forgotten hands, and following the echoes of lives lived beneath the earth, we arrive at the end of our journey. The city of Derinkuyu still rests beneath Cappadocia today, silent, patient, unmoving. Above it, seasons continue to change just as they have for thousands of years. Spring returns to the valleys. Summer sunlight warms the strange rock formations. Autumn colors the landscape. Winter brings cold winds across the hills. Empires have come and gone. Kingdoms have risen and fallen. Languages have changed. Religions have spread. Borders have shifted. Entire worlds have disappeared. Yet beneath all of that change, the underground city remains. There is something deeply moving about that. Not because Derinkuyu is the largest city ever built. Not because it is the richest. Not because it is the most famous, but because it represents something timeless about humanity. Its builders faced uncertainty, like all people do. They lived in a world where the future could not be predicted. Danger could appear without warning. Circumstances could change suddenly. And yet, instead of surrendering to uncertainty, they responded with creativity. They responded with cooperation. They responded with patience. They looked at the earth beneath their feet and imagined possibility. Then they transformed that possibility into reality. Generation after generation, they continued the work, not for glory, not for fame, not for recognition, but for families, for communities, for the hope that life would continue. That may be the most remarkable part of the story. The city was never truly about stone. The tunnels matter because of the people who walked through them. The chambers matter because of the lives lived within them. The city matters because it reminds us what human beings are capable of when they work together. Across the centuries, many names have been forgotten. The individuals who carved the walls are gone. The children who played in the corridors are gone. The elders who shared stories in underground chambers are gone. Yet their efforts remain. Their ideas remain. Their legacy remains. Every visitor who descends into Derinkuyu today becomes connected, however briefly, to those forgotten generations. And perhaps that is one of history's greatest gifts. It allows us to meet people we could never otherwise know, not through conversation, not through photographs, but through the worlds they left behind. Derinkuyu is one of those worlds, a hidden city, a forgotten refuge, a masterpiece of adaptation carved into the earth itself. For centuries it slept beneath the surface, known only to a few. Then, almost by accident, it returned to the light of history. And when it did, it revealed a simple truth. Human beings are often far more resourceful than we imagine, far more resilient than we realize, far more connected to one another than we sometimes remember. The underground city teaches us that survival is rarely a solitary achievement. It is usually a collective one, built through trust, built through knowledge, built through cooperation, just as Derinkuyu was. As our journey comes to an end, imagine standing once more at one of the city's hidden entrances. The cool air rises gently from below. The darkness stretches into the depths of the earth. Somewhere down there are tunnels carved centuries ago, rooms where families gathered, passages where footsteps echoed, spaces where hope endured through uncertain times. The city remains quiet now. Its corridors no longer shelter entire communities. Its chambers no longer hold the routines of daily life. But its story continues. It continues every time someone asks how it was possible, every time someone wonders who built it, every time someone descends into the darkness and imagines the lives that once filled those empty spaces. And perhaps that is the final lesson of Derinkuyu. Some of humanity's greatest achievements are not the ones that reach highest into the sky. Sometimes they are the ones hidden beneath our feet, waiting patiently for us to discover them, waiting patiently to remind us of the ingenuity, determination, and quiet courage of those who came before. And now, as the ancient city settles once again into silence beneath the earth, we leave it where it has rested for centuries. Hidden, mysterious, enduring, a forgotten world that was never truly lost, only waiting to be found. Good night.